As you know, there are more than a million things to buy as a cyclist. Some things you really need and some things you would get only when you're more committed to the sport. Now let's get started on the things you will definitely need, like your helmet, jersey, bibs, socks, shoes, and sunglasses. Check out my video about how to look like a cyclist for more details about jersey color, sock height, and shoes to know exactly what you want to buy. I think that Decathlon sells really good quality jerseys and bibs for a very affordable price. So if you don't have a cycling kit already, I think that's a good place to start. From my experience, don't try to get too many cycling kits. Even though I cycle 6 times a week, I only wear 2 to 3 kits in rotation. When you're ready to move on from platform pedals, you want to get yourself some clipless pedals and cycling shoes. For me, I still stick to the standard Shimano SPD SL cleats because it's the most common. You also can get the old Shimano pedals for a very affordable price, like $40–50. You can get a good Ultegra or 105 pedal. You definitely want to get yourself a spare kit and bring along with you when you ride. So buy a small saddlebag, buy like a few tubes, like maybe 10 tubes to last you like 1 or 2 years, and also get yourself a small hand pump. I got my hand pump from Amazon and I'll link to it in the description below. Even though it might take 7,000 years to get a tire inflated, but the good thing is it's small enough to fit inside your saddlebag. And finally, you want to buy a tire lever as well. I put all these things in my Ziploc bag and then in my saddlebag. Also, another thing that you might want to take along with you when you ride is a Ziploc phone pouch. You can definitely spend money and get the heavy duty phone pouches, but I just took an old Ziploc bag and cut it to my phone size and taped the bottom, so it's easy and free. Before every ride, it's a good habit to pump your tires up, so investing in a good $30 to $40 floor pump with a gauge is a must. I actually have 2 pumps in case one does not work for whatever reason. Next, let's talk about tools. There are some tools that you will definitely need and some tools you will not use so often. The basic tools you'll need are a set of Allen keys. Make sure they are not the cheap ones as they may round off the bolts on your bike. And then get a 15mm spanner. This was a game changer for taking out my pedals because the Allen keys are just too small and not strong enough. Also, get yourself a degreaser. It does not have to be bike specific. I just use a Singer oil, and I know some people use the controversial WD-40 to lubricate their bike. And Singer oil is just $1 for a small bottle, which can last you for 1 or 2 years as well. And besides that, you don't really need anything more, like the chain breaker, cassette removal tool, and all those bottom bracket tools. Personally, I haven't even used them in my 7 years of cycling, so yeah, you really don't even need to have them at all. Alright, next we move on to the things you need to add on to your bike. You're gonna need a set of front and rear lights, obviously. You must use white for the front and red light for the back. And don't ever use blue or green lights because it does not look pro at all. Another good thing to consider is buying a bike computer. That way you know your speed, distance, average speed and time of your ride. And some bike computers also have a map function. You really don't have to get the latest cycling computer for that. I feel like the old Garmin H500 is a good enough cycling computer for most people, and it does everything you need. And being so old is definitely very cheap right now. Personally, I'm using a Garmin H810. It's great because I can see 10 data screens at any point of time, and it only cost me $75 used. By the way, you also want to get your computer mount which sits in front of your bars instead of on your stem, because small things like that will help you look a little bit more pro as well. Last thing you gotta have on your bike are bottle cages, and if you don't already have cycling bottles, you need them, so get a few of them as well. Now let's talk about the things you don't really need when starting out, but may want to invest in when you know you're more committed to the sport of cycling, and even perhaps racing. The first thing I would invest in is a good power meter. That's the only way you know you're actually improving on the bike, because perceived feeling and average speed is way too subjective. The next thing consider is getting a bike trainer. It doesn't have to be a smart trainer, which usually costs above $800. That's why I still use a dumb trainer, because I have a power meter on my bike already. It's the same dumb trainer I used when I first started cycling, so it lasted me a really long time, almost 5–6 years plus. And now dumb trainers are really cheap secondhand. I think they are less than $200 and they will last a very long time. So when you're ready to commit to cycling and improve your bike performance, a power meter and trainer are the first 2 things to buy. Next, if you're interested in racing, you should consider getting yourself a pair of carbon wheels. You're gonna spend a little bit more money here. I think $600 to $900 can get you a decent pair of carbon wheels. Definitely not the latest, but a used pair. And that's gonna have like 99% of the benefit you get of buying the latest wheel. As for an aero helmet, you can get the Specialized Evade for less than $100 now. Lastly, if you're into triathlon, you might want to invest in triathlon bike in the future for your Ironman and half Ironman races. In terms of training, a time trial bike will also help you. For example, I use my road bike when I ride outside in groups, and I use my time trial bike on the trainer at home. Because time trial bikes aren't the safest in groups either. And so my time trial bike literally just stays on my trainer and only comes out for races. And this is so that I don't give myself more barriers to ride, especially when I'm feeling unmotivated. Now in quarantine, I ride 100% of my rides on my trainer, so I don't want to take my bike out of the trainer and put it on every single day. Okay, now we move on to the stuff that we don't need at all. These are things that are really nice to have but don't really add much value to your training. The first is having a proper bike fit. Bike fits are a good thing, but in my 7 years of cycling, I've never had a proper bike fit. I've spent many rides getting aches and pains and doing micro adjustments to perfect my saddle height, so that's one way to do it. Another thing that you can do without is paid applications like Zwift and Strava Premium. They are great, but I still haven't got my head around to paying for those stuff yet. I feel that's just for entertainment value. Something else that you don't really need is a CO2 canister. Honestly, I've never used my CO2 canister ever before because I've always used the pump. CO2 cartridges are quite expensive as well. After all, it's just air and you don't want to be paying money for air. Alright, if you're a beginner cyclist, hopefully I've helped you distinguish what's important to buy and what you don't really need. Because it's very easy to go gear shopping and doing impulse purchases. And if I missed out on anything a beginner cyclist should buy, feel free to comment it down below. Thanks for watching, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again in the next video. Bye!